Hello and welcome to Syndicate Gaming. My name is Jim, and we have so much to talk about today. Today was the Marvel Crisis Protocol roadmap, which, for those who don't know, is during a mini extravaganza that's put on by AMG every year. They talk about the next year's releases, and that was today, and it was yesterday and Thursday. It's like a 3-day event for all their games: MCP, Shatterpoint, and Legion. There's huge news for Legion and Shatterpoint that I want to talk about. I don't know if I'll be able to do videos on them. We'll see. But I definitely wanted to talk about MCP. So today, I'm going to be talking about what was discussed in the roadmap, with new card reveals, new stuff we didn't know about. But they've already spoiled uh, changes to the card rotation, you know, uh, like tactics cards, ton of changes to those. I'm not going to talk about those too much, except uh, I'm sad for my boy Rhino. His card got nerfed. And I'm not going to talk about Apocalypse right now. I'm going to do a whole separate video about him because he is worthy of his own video, and it's going to be a long one, but that'll be fun. But I will say about him that he's a six threat, and I put out a video about 6+ threats and how I don't like them, but I think he's designed really well and he works in his own affiliation and he looks like a ton of fun. I can't wait to try him. So keep an eye out for those two videos about Apocalypse and the tactics card changes. But I wanted to do this one today because it's the freshest information. So, really quick, I mentioned it in my tier list video, but I've set up something called Buy Me a Coffee, which is basically a way for people to support me by buying me a coffee. It's typically in $5 increments. Uh, I've thought about setting up like a Patreon, but I don't think I offer enough like monthly content to make that worth it. So if anybody wants to do a one-time contribution just to help me out, really my goal is to get a new camera. So I want to film myself like painting or hobbying and just make myself look better here. So that's the goal there. Um, the the link on the last video was messed up, so I haven't got anything from that yet. But if you feel like contributing and being the first one, that would be fantastic if you could. And there's a little place to leave a message, and in there you can leave me a message about what you want to see in videos. I can't like 100% promise I'll do a video on what you comment, but I will strongly consider it. So yeah, thanks for checking that out. And let's just dive right in here. So this is the timeline for the next year of releases. And they put up here that it's non-exhaustive, which means they can always add more stuff, and there probably will be more stuff than this. But just to run through everything we're going to be talking about, in September we have Angel and Archangel, Sunspot and Warlock, Weapon X and Maverick. And then in November we have Mephisto, Abomination, Wrecking Crew, Tomb of Dracula, Monsters Unleashed. And then starting next year we have something called War of Kings, Nova and Yondu, Elsa Bloodstone and Man Thing. And then we have Avalanche, Exodus, Lady Mastermind, Phoenix, the Inhuman Royal Court, and then a Spider-Verse character pack, and Echo, Tigra, and Ronin. So I'm gonna run through these that don't have rules really quick, but we are gonna look at them. I'm gonna talk about them. I'm gonna share some of the information that they put in the live stream, which by the way, I would recommend checking out the live panels because they talk a lot about like the art and sculpting and stuff like that, which I will mention, but I'm not going to touch on too heavily. And all that stuff is really cool to hear. And those people that do the art and the sculpting and all that do a fantastic job and are worthy of being mentioned and brought up. And I love listening to that kind of stuff. So You can just go to AMG's YouTube and watch the panels for yourself. Uh, I want to call out specifically Josh and Marco seem to do a fantastic job, and I love hearing from them because we don't get to hear from them too often, and it's always really insightful to me to hear their perspective on the art of the tactics cards and on the character cards and then the sculpting. So that's been really cool. But here, so right here we have Echo, Tiger, and Ronin. Um, they said they're more street level heroes, so they'll be in like Defenders, Avengers, maybe Shield or something like that. I don't know much about Tigra or Tigra. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Don't know a whole lot about her. They said she's like a detective kind of character. Not entirely sure. Ronan is really cool. He was in the Avengers Endgame, wound up being Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye. He went berserk, killed off a bunch of criminals and stuff like that. And it was kind of funny because they made a whole point about not saying who this Ronin was, and you'll have to like wait until the character is released, because apparently a bunch of people have been Ronin. But then if we go back to the timeline, it says Ronin parentheses Clint Barton. So it's Clint Barton. That's kind of like classic AMG mistake there. It's not a big deal, but it's just kind of funny. And then Echo is obviously really cool. She's had her own show. She was in the Hawkeye show. She's great. I'm kind of surprised she's not in the game yet, but she will be. So this is coming out Q3 of 2025. And then we have Phoenix and Phoenix Unleashed, which for those who don't know, there was like a leaked character list a long time ago. And Phoenix was on the list, and she's finally coming to the game. So they said that she's obviously an X-Men and she's more than six threat. So she's probably seven or eight threat. And she can transform from like regular Phoenix into Phoenix Unleashed. Uh, they said willingly or unwillingly. So I assume it's something you can do, but you might like not last the entire game. And then maybe if you take too much damage, you turn into Phoenix Unleashed. I don't know, but she looks like, I mean, this sculpt is ridiculous, right? Like all the sculpts for MCP are insane. But yeah, she's really cool. She's finally coming. I think she was Q2 2025. Yeah. All right, who's before this? Oh, the Spider-Verse character pack. So this is Spider-Man 2099, who's in like, Marvel Snap and the Spider-Man Miles Morales movies. I haven't seen the newest one. I really got to watch that. I know he was in that, but he's kind of a fan favorite. And they said that this pack is coming with more than just him. I'm gonna speculate here that it's those characters from those movies. So like Spider Ham, Spider-Man Noir, and like Penny, I think is her name. She has like the robot with her. I bet they're all in a pack together. I'm calling it now. There's obviously, I have nothing to back that up except it's a character pack. Maybe it's only one of those characters, like Spider Ham, I think is the most likely out of those. But really cool. Obviously, more Web Warriors is always good. Now, here they said we have new members for the Brotherhood of Mutants in Avalanche, Lady Mastermind, and Exodus. I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I've never heard of any of these characters, so I can't really speak to what they do. Apparently, they mentioned X-Men 97 has this guy in the middle here, who I believe is Exodus. They said he was in X-Men 97 and he did some dancing. Not entirely sure what that means. I guess I got to go watch that. But I will say I really like the sculpt of Avalanche. Like I'm just liking his look right off the bat. He looks kind of like Blob or Pyro, who are, my kind of characters from the Brotherhood. More of the like lower level grunts are cool. And then Lady Mastermind has like some kind of cat or panther jumping out from behind her. I don't know if that's like an illusion or like a spirit or something. I don't know. I need to look these characters up. Let me know what you know about them or if they're cool, if they're worth checking out. So they're coming out in Q2 2025. Oh, and Spider-Verse is Q3. All right. Oh, so this is War of Kings, which is a character and crisis card pack, which is really interesting. So this character right here is somebody named Gladiator, who I don't know a whole lot about, but I've heard from Fury's Finest that he's a really cool character. Apparently he's core to this War of Kings story, which I've also heard is a great storyline. But what's new about this is you get Gladiator and 10 new crisis cards, 5 secures and 5 extracts. And they said that these crises are like really, really good, and all of their playtesters like them better than like the traditional crises, and that this is going to shake up like competitive play and other formats. So I assume there's going to be like a little bit of rotation of crises, but we'll find out more about this. This is also Q2 of 2025. No, it's Q1. So it'll be in like January, February, March, somewhere in there. So yeah, it looks pretty cool. I don't know much about Gladiator. He has a mohawk, pretty sweet. Interesting costume. He looks like an alien. I assume he's cosmic, but yeah, so this is pretty exciting. I think it's interesting that if you want the new crises, you like have to get Gladiator. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. Just kind of means everyone will have Gladiator, but we'll see how this goes. We need to learn more about this before we can pass judgment. Oh, and here we have the Inhuman Royal Court. Uh, I have been expecting more Inhumans for a while now. So this is King Black Bolt, who I assume is an even stronger Black Bolt than who we have. So he's probably like a sixth threat. We have Karnak, Gorgon, and Maximus. They said Maximus is a new leader for the Inhumans, which is pretty cool. He's kind of like a Loki-esque character. He's like a trickster mastermind. He's usually a villain, but sometimes like an anti-hero, as far as I could tell. Uh, I have actually read a comic about these guys, which I haven't read too many comic lines, but I read the X-Men versus Inhumans, and that was pretty interesting. There was some cool team ups with like Gorgon and Colossus, or actually they were fighting, yeah, because it was a versus series. But this looks sweet. Uh, they really need some new characters. And I guess it matches up with War of Kings. Like some of the crises are like themed around the Inhumans, like the wedding of Crystal and Ronan. So that'll be interesting. I really want to learn more about these. Yeah, they look great. Oh, and then we have uh the sculpts and paint jobs for Elsa Bloodstone and Man Thing. They were in the Werewolf by Night short by Marvel, which is really good. It's only like 45 minutes, but it's totally worth it. It's all in like black and white, except for like little red splotches every now and then, but it's totally worth checking out. They said Elsa is a new leader for the Midnight Suns, which is fantastic. They didn't say a whole lot about Man Thing. One thing I noticed with this is they have like dirt on the bases, which is I think new to MCP. Like I doubt that's sculpted on. That looks like an actual like dirt effect or like, powder or dust or something like that. So that's kind of interesting that they're doing that. But these two look great. I I don't love the Midnight Suns too much myself or the whole like horror theme, but I think it's cool they're coming to the game. Like Elsa Bloodstone is a good hero. Now we have Yondu and Nova. So I mean, Yondu looks fantastic. They talked about how he's kind of a combination of like the movies and the comics, which is kind of just a thing for the Guardians because the Guardians weren't super popular until the movie came out. So then the comics started to mimic the movies. But then Yondu, They mentioned how Yondu like met a previous version of himself, so now he has the bow. But I love this sculpt. Like they got the arrow right in the pose. Looks fantastic. And then Nova, they said, is a new leader for the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is fantastic because they've only had the one pretty much since the game. Uh, they've had the one since the game came out because they were in one of the early waves, right? So yeah, that'll be cool. They said he's a high threat. He's very powerful. Uh, Josh mentioned that he's kind of wearing a Nova Prime costume, but it's actually like classic Nova. So kind of interesting. They did like a little blend of those two. So yeah, can't wait to hear more about these guys. They come out um quarter 1 next year. Yeah, quarter 1. Same with Elsa Bloodstone and Man Thing. But the rest of the stuff we're gonna look at comes out this year. Um, and here is Mephisto, who I am personally very excited for Mephisto. Like, he's literally like the devil, but I just love villains, as anyone knows that's watched the channel. I definitely favor villains. And here's all three of his tactics cards, and they're all just these like Faustian deals, right? Which is like a deal you make with the devil that seems beneficial to you, but it's actually like horrible and has some crazy drawback. Um, which for those who have seen Rick and Morty, there's a whole thing about the like devil has like a pawn shop with artifacts that are cursed but have some horrible drawback. That's basically what's happening here. So like this card here is for your allies. Mephisto spends power. All other characters within three of them gain the incinerate special condition. And then this round, when an allied character that is incinerated makes an attack, it can reroll all of its attack dice. And when the attack deals damage, you remove the incinerate. So it's like a risk reward, right? So it's like Mephisto is lighting his ally on fire to deal more damage, but while they're incinerated, your opponent also deals more damage. So I don't know if he's like gonna be good or not because we haven't seen his actual character card. They're holding that off, but he looks like a ton of fun. And like this one's about the uh famous slash infamous storyline with Spider-Man. Mephisto was like, I'll save Aunt May, but you have to break up with MJ. And Spider-Man fans have like never lived that down. It's cool because it's like when an enemy would be dazed or KO'd, Mephisto plays a card, then the other player can save their character, but it fuels Mephisto for like the rest of the game, removes his activated token. And if you don't take the deal, Mephisto fully heals and gains much power. So it's like no matter what you choose, Mephisto is benefiting, right? Which is super cool. And then this one, he has some kind of Devil's Deal tokens that he has, which they didn't really say what that was, but he has his own unique resource, which hopefully he functions okay, because like Mr. Sinister has his own unique resource and he struggles pretty hard. So hopefully, this character works out. What's really interesting is he's CP66, which means he was so basically during this event they talked about like the CP numbers and the SKU numbers. So like, the first core set is like CP1, right? And now they're up to like what is yeah, like this one's like CP166, right? But he's 66, which means they've had him planned for a very long time and he's only finally coming out, which I think is very interesting. I don't know what would have held him up, but there was the whole meme around WandaVision that it was, secretly Mephisto and it never ended up panning out. But yeah, I'm very excited for this guy. All right, now we're going to get into some character cards, which I'm going to skip ahead to the beginning here. Actually, let's start with Maverick. So, Maverick and Weapon X are in a box together. They're obviously going to be part of Weapon X. They could potentially be part of X-Force. Probably not Weapon X. Weapon X is probably just at Weapon X. But let's talk about some Maverick. So I'm not gonna like read the entire card because there's a ton of these and that would take forever. But I'm gonna cover them in an overview, right? But knowing myself, it'll probably go kind of long. So heck. So Maverick is a 3 threat. He's really squishy with threes and defenses, 5 health. Pretty standard here. What's really cool is he has an energy rapid fire, which, as far as I know, is a brand new thing. There's a Mystic Rapid Fire with Hood, but I think everybody else is physical. So that just right off the bat makes him really cool because he's doing a new unique thing, right? He has a range to 5 dice attack that's physical. I don't know if you ever do that because you have plasma blasters that give you guaranteed power and are energy, but hey, it's there if you need it. And then his spender is pretty standard, range 3, 3 power, 7 dice, wild throw, pretty solid. He has hit and run, which makes me think of Sin actually, because Sin is hit and run and rapid fire. So he's kind of doing similar stuff to her. That's a really fun play pattern, by the way, because you're just like running and gunning, right? Um, and then as we come down here, he has anti-healing factor corrosive. So he could spend 2 power. When an enemy character within 3 would remove damage from itself, this character may use the superpower. They do not remove any damage. So that's obviously brand new. I think the theme here is that Maverick was part of the Weapon X program, was kind of built as like a counter to the Weapon X uh characters or subjects, whatever you want to call them. Um, so he like hunts them down. He eventually joins them, right? That's what they were saying. But this is pretty cool. Like he's like a tech piece, obviously, right? But so this clearly shuts down people with healing factor, like the Wolverines and Sabretooth and Lizard and Sandman and all that. But it also just like stops patch up. So although it says when an enemy character within 3 would remove damage from itself. I'm not sure about that one. That one we gotta double check. But it could potentially shut that down, which would be really good. So that's cool. It's kind of niche, right? Because like not every roster has healing factor characters, but if healing factor characters become a problem or you just don't like them, then bring Maverick and you'll just shut him down. And then he has something called kinetic energy absorption. When he's dealt damage by a physical attack, after the attack is resolved, if he's not dazed, he gets a power and may advance short. That is super good because it gives him an extra power and he advances any direction, right? So normally these kind of superpowers you have to advance towards the enemy that damaged you. He just goes wherever he wants. Like he can move away, like he can move out of range and get extra power. That seems really good. The only problem is he's so squishy that like I don't know how many of these attacks he's really surviving, but it's nice to have, right? And then he has healing factor 1. So it's worth noting if you haven't seen the card changes yet, which I haven't covered, but they basically banned exceptional healing and put in a different card. Um, so healing factor is not as good as it used to be. And the next character we're gonna do is gonna be the reason why they ban that tactics card, I think. But Maverick is super cool. I'm not like that excited for him, but I'm glad he's in the game. And just the fact he has an energy rapid fire is noteworthy. So pretty cool. All right, now we're gonna do Weapon X, who's obviously Wolverine. Like as soon as he gets out of the program, he's literally like mind controlled by what is it, General Stryker? I'm not entirely sure about all the lore behind this guy, but pretty sure that's what it is. So he's a 3 threat, so he's the lowest threat Wolverine. He's the same as like Laura Kinney, his clone. but he has 3 physical, 2 energy, 3 mystic defense, 5 health, 3 threat, medium move. So he's like below average for stats for defense. But as we look at his offense, it's going to be insane. So he has Berserker Rage, range 2, 5 dice. He gains 1 power, and if he has already hit that character this turn, he adds a die to the attack roll and has Wild Pierce. So this 3 threat could have a 6 dice piercing attack. That's pretty good. Like, that's on Hood's you know, like possess side, and it's very, very strong. Um, and it gets even crazier as we read the card. But his spender is a range to 7 dice 4 power, has a bunch of wild triggers. So on a wild and hit, you do rampage, deals 1 damage to each other character within 2 of this character, and that's also allies. Like this dude is so like unhinged that he's damaging your allies as well. Like pretty cool. So on 2 wilds, you trigger Wild Abandon, and after the attack is resolved, you do another spender attack into the same character, but it can't keep triggering. So that's a lot of damage. And as you can see, he can only spend power on charge in this spender, so you're probably going to be doing this fairly often. So he has charge for 2 power. Makes sense. This dude is pure offense. He has a classic innate for Wolverine where he counts as size 3 for throws and pushes. And then he has this innate called Savagery Protocols. So he cannot pick up, hold, contest, or interact with extract objective tokens. So he just does not play that part of the game. Also, while within 1 of a secure objective token, this character adds 2 dice to its attack rolls and removes 1 die from its defense rolls. So that means while he's contesting a secure, his gainer, I guess, is 7 dice pierce, can go up to 8 dice if it's the second time you've hit them. Then his spender becomes 9 dice, which makes it more likely to hit these wild triggers and get the second attack, but he drops to 2, 1, and 2 defense. And then he has healing factor 3, which as far as I know is the most in the game. Like this is peak Wolverine healing, right? So this is a wild character, and I think he's the reason why they banned exceptional healing because he only has 5 health, and if you could keep him alive to like get this big attack off, that would be pretty insane. So this is a guy that you want to go with first before he's dazed and just deal as much damage as you possibly can, right? But he also like doesn't, contribute to extracts, so yeah. I like I don't know, he seems kind of fun in like Criminal Syndicate because he's really good on secures. So like with Kingpin, he counts as 2 and does a ton of damage, but he'll just die super easily, so I guess he loses that benefit, but I don't know. This is a really cool character. I like both Maverick and Weapon X. I don't know a whole lot about the characters, so I don't know if this is a pack that I'm gonna like pick up, but I think it's great that they're in the game. So yeah, just pure damage, anti-healing factor stuff. So pretty cool. They didn't show off any of their like tactics cards or anything. And it's great that Weapon X is getting a boost because they've kind of been a meme for a little while here. All right, let's go on to the New Mutants with Sunspot. So let's just talk about right off the bat here. They confirm that the New Mutants is a new affiliation, but as you can see, Sunspot does not have a leadership on his card. So it's going to be a tactics card leadership, which those have been very hit or miss. They're either like insane or very bad. Um, they mentioned that it benefits your characters that are like paired together or grouped up, like teamwork. They called it, I think they called it the buddy system. And they also mentioned that it helps Sunspot get his flare tokens, which means it does some kind of movement. So that's all I can really say about it. I don't want to speculate too much more on it, but you know, as far as I know, the New Mutants are like Sunspot and Warlock, who we'll talk about after Sunspot. And I know Magic is in the New Mutants, so that'll be interesting. They seem very mobile. Sunspot, at least, and Magic are. Warlock isn't really. They mentioned that this is Sunspot's X-Force costume, so he's probably going to be in X-Force and in the X-Men and in New Mutants. So pretty cool. And he's a mutant, so he could potentially also be in Servants of the Apocalypse, I believe is what his affiliation is called. But Sunspot, I don't know a whole lot about this character besides he was really good in Marvel Snap. Um, but they mentioned that he needs to be out in the sun. He, brings in the sun's energy and then can like release it, and he doesn't have total control over it because he's fairly young, I believe. But anyways, he's a 3/4/3 defenses, 6 health, 4 threat, moves medium. He is on a medium-sized base, so he's pretty fast. Uh, he has a range 2, 5 dice builder. Wild hit, he gains a flare token. So what is a flare token? So that's his special resource. So let's jump down to his last superpower there that's innate called Flare State. So after this character ends a movement, he gains a Flare token. He can have a maximum of 3 Flare tokens at any time. Then it talks about when he becomes dazed or KO'd, he can spend any amount of Flare tokens. Or no, I'm sorry, he can spend all of his Flare tokens. And then he deals 1 damage to all enemy characters within range X of it, where X is the number of flare tokens when he's dazed or KO'd. So that means he could have up to 3 flare tokens, and when he's dazed, you can spend all 3 of them to deal 3 damage to all enemy characters within range 3. That's really good. Um, yeah, I hadn't really considered that till just right now, but 3 damage to potentially like 3 characters, that's very, very good. But, you know, that'll obviously reset his flare tokens to 0 when he wakes up from dazing. Um, when he's KO'd, you obviously just do all of them, right? Because why not? He's going to be off the board. But let's see how else he can spend his flare tokens. So his spender is a range 3, 7 dice, 3 power. Wild hit trigger. After the attack is resolved, other characters within 2 of the target suffer damage. They do not gain power for this damage dealt, and he cannot take the damage. So it's not a great spender to be honest. It will damage allies, which is not good. And then 3 power for 7 dice is pretty standard. Like we just saw it on like Maverick, and it was on like Vulture and stuff like that, Lizard. So pretty standard spender, but it's more of this like AoE damage being dealt. So this guy can like spread the auto damage, which is really good. So then he has a superpower, high energy conversion, 2 power. Use a train feature enemy character within 2 size equal to or less than the number of flare tokens he has, and throw that short. So if he has 3 flare tokens, which is the max, he can throw a size 3 character short for 2 power. So that's really good. Like typically you're spending the amount of power equal to the size of the thing you're throwing, but this is like a discount. And if he only has 2 flare tokens, then you're breaking even, right? So it's good if you have the flare tokens. It's pretty bad if you don't. And he gets a flare token by moving. So, and I'm pretty sure that means when he's placed or thrown, he also gets it. So moving him around with like Angel, who we'll see, or uh, like Red Skull could teleport him, people like that. Seems like it's gonna be really good. Um, then his next superpower is called Sunburn. Two power, it's an action. This this character moves at speed. If he has three flare tokens, he moves long instead and gains flight. And then he makes an attack. So he has a charge. So worst case, he's charging. Best case, he's moving long with flight. So that's pretty solid. Um, it's pretty clear here. You want all three flare tokens on him to like really make him work. But then this final superpower, thermokinesis, before rolling attack dice, you can use the superpower and spend one or more flare tokens, and you add a die to the attack roll for each flare token spent. If you spend a flare token after the attack is resolved, the character gains incinerate. So it's going to be really interesting balancing the flare tokens, right? Because spending a flare token gives you a die on your attack, which is not the best thing ever, but it does do a guaranteed incinerate, which is really good, like especially helping the rest of your team. But I think he's gonna be best saving up the flare tokens because he has a better throw. He's moving long with his charge, and when he's dazed, he explodes and does a ton of damage, right? So I think you really only spend the flare token if you're gonna then get another one right afterwards, right? So yeah, like I guess you could spend a flare token with thermokinesis to boost up his builder, because if you get a wild and hit, you get the flare token back, right? So yeah, I guess you could spend the one, get the guaranteed incinerate, go back up to three, and then you can spend all three to pump it up to 8 dice, and they're incinerated to try and like finish them off, right? So this guy has a lot of flexibility, which is pretty cool, but to get the most out of him, you're gonna need to manage the flare tokens, which is really unique, I like that. He's very squishy. He only has 3 physical defense with 6 health is not super great. So hopefully the leadership helps him out with that. But he is very mobile, and if they do daze him, they could take a ton of damage. So might be worth it. All right, that's Sunspot. Pretty cool character. Wonder how he'll be in X-Force. He's more energy, auto incinerate, auto damage. He might be pretty good in X-Force. Hmm. All right, then his box mate is Warlock, who is also in the New Mutants. Uh, so when this character was first announced back in March at Adepticon, I I did not know who this was. I had never heard of this person. But my buddy John, who's, read comics, was like, "Holy cow, they did Warlock. What in the world?" He was hype. So that's cool to see. Apparently Warlock is a great character that is pretty funny without meaning to be funny, I think. They have a weird way of talking. They say like self-friend Warlock or something like that. But all right. So Warlock, 3/3/4 defenses, 5 health, threat 3, medium move. So pretty standard, a little bit better in Mystic defense, lower health. Um, I'm noticing with a lot of these characters that their health is pretty low and their defenses are not super great. So I think that's just like a new like design choice AMG is making, but we'll see. There's stuff on here to help him out. So he has a builder, range 2, 5 dice. On a wild, it causes bleed and poison, which is pretty solid. There's not a whole lot that does 2 conditions with a single bleed, so that's pretty cool. He has a Buster Cannon, which is a range 4 or 5 dice energy attack, gains a power, and a Wild Shock. Pretty cool. Like that's a very solid range attack. So that right there makes me think Warlock might be okay just hanging back and blasting people, right? Then he has a spender that's range 3, 7 dice, 4 power. So it costs more than our average here. But when you're making the dice pool for the attack, you can blow up a terrain feature of size 3 or less and add a number of dice, the attack roll equal to the terrain size. So this is the same as Electro, is where we first saw this. But I think it has a higher floor, so that's pretty interesting. Then on a wild throw, so if the target is size 3 or less, Warlock can throw them away short. So and it's energy. So that's a pretty solid spender. It could potentially be 10 dice with a throw at range 3. So like that will put some hurt out onto people. Like that is no joke if they come up on Warlock. All right. So then they have Techno Organic Absorption. 2 power. Choose a terrain feature within range 3 of size 3 or less and destroy it. Then this character removes damage from itself equal to the destroyed terrain feature size. Okay. So just 2 power, blow up a terrain, heal 3. It's pretty cool. I think Warlock is like eating the terrain. Well, I don't know if he's literally eating it, but he's probably pulling it into himself, like Sandman or something. Then Transmode Virus Infection, 2 power. This character and enemy characters within 2 of this character with the poison special condition suffer 2 damage in the order of your choosing. The superpower can be used only once per turn. So this is very similar to Omega Red. It's like almost identical. So this is more just auto damage, like Sunspot. So I think that's kind of a theme of the New Mutants is auto damage, at least with this box. It's like Sunspot can potentially deal 3 auto damage, and Warlock can do another 2. So that's 5 damage right there. Like that'll daze certain characters, you know? It's not super great that Warlock does the damage to himself, but then he does have a way to heal it right away. Then that's a lot of power. So it's kind of interesting. And then he has an innate unstable outline. When this character is defending against a physical or energy attack, the attacking character is not within range 3 of this character. This character may add 1 die to its defense roll. Okay, so at range, he has better defense. He goes up to 4. So that reinforces the thought that Warlock was to hang back with the Buster Cannon, just put out shocks at long range. But if the enemy gets too close, he can like do this great spender. He can deal auto damage. So really, really interesting character. Oh, he also can't be bled or poisoned. So um when I first read this card, I was pretty down on it, but I've read some stuff online and I've talked to you know, like, my friend and my brother, and Warlock might be pretty good. I'm really worried about this 5 health. I think if he had 6 health, I'd be a lot more comfortable with him, but yeah, strange character, right? Pretty cool. I will say, if Warlock ends up in Servants of the Apocalypse and can be Pestilence, that's gonna be really good because he can hand out a lot of special conditions and like that Horseman ability can auto poison and then Warlock can auto damage. So I think that's gonna be pretty good. I have no idea if he's in Servants of the Apocalypse, but it sounds like most of the mutants are. Uh, keep an eye out for the video I'm gonna do on that. But yeah, the New Mutants are very cool. I really like their design space so far. And they mentioned they're gonna buddy up, right? So like I don't know if Warlock and Sunspot are gonna be good buddies because Sunspot is primarily range 2, and Warlock is a longer range, so you might need different buddies there. So, like Magic might be like going in with Sunspot, but Warlock is hanging back with, oh boy, I don't know who else is in the New Mutants, but some other range character, right? So, all right, so that's the New Mutants. Um, who's next? Angel, another one of the X-Men. I think this is the final member of the OG X-Men team. Is finally in the game. They also showed off Archangel, but I'm gonna cover him in the Apocalypse video because he is tied in to him, right? I mean, you can play Archangel anywhere, but he blends really well with Apocalypse. I'm gonna use him as an example in that video. So yeah, because Angel and Archangel come in the same box, which is pretty cool. They've never done it where the same alter ego is in the same character pack. So all right, so Angel. First of all, this sculpt is bananas. Like the wings here, awesome. If I have one complaint, it's his face, but it's obviously a small picture and far away, so it could look better in person. But shout out to Marco and his team. So, all right, Angel, 3/3 defense, 5 health, threat 3, medium move. So pretty squishy again, like I mentioned. A lot of squishy characters coming out. Let's see what he does. Flyby, beam 3, 4 dice, or strength 4. He gains a power after each attack, and after all the attacks are resolved, place him within range 1 of the last character targeted by this attack. This is this is really, really, really good. Like, first of all, beams just give you more opportunities to spike and deal damage, right? And it gives you like a guaranteed amount of power because if you beam 2 characters, you know you're getting 2 power. And you know that you're placing within 1 of the last character. So the only way that this can get messed up is by like a bodyguard or like a sacrifice. You might end up placing by a character you didn't mean to place by, but that doesn't seem like too bad of a situation, right? So really good start here with the beam. Then his spender is range 3, 7, strength, 3 power, so it's like the same as all the other spenders we've seen. And it has an automatic throw of the character if they're size 3 or less, throws them short, then a wild stun. So that's a great spender. I mean, that's just good. Any spender with a guaranteed throw is good, is worth doing. Like you might want to save your power for that. Okay, then he has airlift, which is on like Sam Wilson. So it's 2 power. When he starts a move within range 2 of another allied character of size 2 or less, after he moves, he places the allied character range 2. So the X-Men already have this with Iceman. It's not called airlift. I think it's called ice slide, but it's essentially the same thing. So now they have 2 of these at 3 threat, which is very interesting. This helps out characters like Professor X a ton, or helps people like Nightcrawler get even further up the table to open up like round 1 plays with their teleport or magic, people like that. It, it's a solid superpower. Then he has Hostile Takeover, which is 2 power. So during its activation, when he begins a move within range 2 of an enemy character, he can use the superpower. After the move is resolved, push the enemy character towards this character's short. So we just saw something very similar on Vulture, right? Um, Here, let me wrap it up. He has healing factor 1 and flight. So healing factor is not as good as it used to be, but it's still solid, right? Okay, so let me make the obvious comparison to Vulture because he's obviously the other 3 threat bird person that just came out. And I've played Vulture a decent amount now, trying him out in Criminal Syndicate and Spider Foes. And in my video about him, I was saying, he has some merits to him and he's fun. Most of my games, he's just like blown up. He's kind of died, but I don't think I've been playing him correctly. I've been playing him knowing he's gonna die, but like Vulture's thing is that he has this hostile takeover that Angel has, except he places them range 2 instead of pushing them, which that is better because you can like put them on the other side of a building or something. It doesn't get stopped by terrain. It's any direction, whereas Angel has to push towards himself, like push towards Angel. Vulture's Bender is actually better because he throws size 3 medium, but it doesn't have the stun. And then Angel has this beam that Vulture just doesn't have. Vulture has a 5 dice builder that doesn't place him. So, like, Vulture's play pattern is like move in, spend 2 power for hit and run, hope you get 2 power to what is his called? Airlift? No, I think his is called abduct. 2 power to move them range 2 away, and then he moves away. Whereas Angel can like beam and hit a bunch of people, get plays next to them, and then hostile takeover away, right? So Angel is actually well, Angel doesn't have hit and run though, and he can't use airlift or hostile takeover off of flyby. Hmm. Because if he uses flyby to get in there and flyby to get out, he can't use airlift or hostile takeover. So one of his actions has to be a move, right? But he doesn't have hit and run to get like the second attack. He's he's interesting. He's like ridiculously squishy, right? It's like 5 health, 3/3/3, no other defenses besides like storm cover, or I guess it's a reroll now. But yeah, I don't know. Just my games with Vulture makes me scared for Angel. At least Angel can get off 2 or 3 attacks because of the beam, right? So he has that going for him. I think Angel is fine, but not like super good. So I am glad he's in the game though, because I've always liked Angel. He was really cool in the movies and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm curious if he's only in X-Men or if he's also in like X-Force or New Mutants or something like that. That might help him out a little bit. Because like if you compare him to Iceman, who also has Beam 3 and Airlift, it's like Iceman might just be better. But I don't know. I do really like Archangel, who we'll talk about. So that'll be fun. All right, now we're moving on to Monsters Unleashed, which is a character pack of Werewolf by Night, the Mummy, who I believe is named Encantu the Mummy, and then Frankenstein's monster and Dracula. So they gave us Werewolf by Night and Dracula. So let's do Werewolf by Night first. Um, which by the way, go watch that short that I mentioned. Super good. The main character is Werewolf by Night. All right, so he is 4 physical defense, 4 energy defense, 2 mystic defense, 7 health, threat 5. He's a 5 threat. Size 3, medium move. He is on a medium base, so he's fast. He's pretty fast. Savage Slash is his builder. It's a range 3, 6 dice, which is very, very good. Like that's a lot of dice at range 3. And then it says if it deals damage, they gain bleed. So basically an auto bleed because 6 dice should deal damage. And then a wild, before damage is dealt, place him within range 1. So that's not super great. I don't love that because it's not guaranteed, right? So like 6 dice is a lot of dice, but I've missed plenty of wild triggers on 6 dice. And if you're counting on that range 1 place, or will place him within range 1 and you miss it, that's like really, really bad. Um, Also, on the flip side, if you're already on a point and you're attacking somebody that's off the point and you get the wild, you have to place off of them, right? It's like Beast. It's like Beast has the same thing where if he gets a wild, he has to place, and that's just like randomly really bad. Um, so a little bit disappointed by that. Like I wish it was just one way or the other, right? Like it's like like it always happens, or it was optional or something, but he is kind of an unhinged werewolf, so I like get the theme, right? It's like sometimes he goes too hard and jumps off the point for killing. So it's all right. Let's keep reading. All right, so Spender, lethal lycanthrope, range 2, 7 dice, 3 power. So like I said, all these spenders have been 3 power, 7 dice, so it's kind of interesting. And then it says you throw the target character if their size or less away shortly. So guaranteed throw, like I mentioned earlier, very good. And then it says on a hit, Curse of the Wolf, they gain bleed and hex. So that's good. 7 dice, you should get a hit. Like it's twice as likely as a wild. So you should be getting that. Like bleed is randomly really good, but usually whatever. Turns out the bleed is going to be really good with Dracula, who we're going to read next. So keep that in mind. And then Hex is one of those conditions that's like you never shake it, right? But it's so annoying because you can't roll in your crits. Like you roll crits and that's it. It's like you're fighting Domino or Black Cat all the time. Very annoying. So just randomly giving Hex is really good. But like, so the spender is decent, right? But he has so many other superpowers that cost quite a bit. I don't know how often you're going to be doing this unless you want the guaranteed throw. So, because it's only one more die than builder, right? Like, I guess if you really don't want to leap off the point, you do the spender. But yeah. All right. So then he has pounce, which we've seen this a few times now. It's 3 power. He throws himself short. He doesn't suffer damage if he collides with characters or terrain. So we just saw this on, who did I review recently that this was on? Uh, why can't I think of it? Hmm, I'm blanking. Okay. Well, it's on Sabretooth and Black Panther and Gamora. That's gonna bother me. Who is that on? Wait, sorry, I just gotta. It's not on one of the Spider Foes. Huh, okay. Well, it's on somebody. Sabretooth and all them. Alright, so that's obviously really good because he's size 3, right? Like that's 4 damage coming in, which is really good. Like 3 power to move yourself and deal damage is really good. So this is a way to like counteract the leaping from the Savage Slash. So like if Werewolf by Night leaps onto an enemy that's off the point, it like dazes them or something, you can pounce back to the point and hit somebody else. So uh yeah, super good superpower. Now he has a superpower called Unearthly Howl. 2 power. Choose an enemy character within range 3, or roll 4 dice. They lose power equal to the number of crits, wilds, and hits you rolled. Also, for each skull you rolled, the character gains one of the following conditions: slow or root. This is like this is really good. There's not a lot of ways to like reduce power from a character. It's really only like Deadpool and Rogue and like a few tactics cards, and it's very consistent. So on 4 dice, you should get 2 of those results. So that's like I spend 2 power to take away 2 of your power, and if I get lucky and get a skull, you're also slowed or rooted, which both of those are very good and just shut down certain characters, right? So I think this Howl is like very good superpower. One you probably want to be looking to do most of the time if you can. Then he has a reactive power called Midnight Massacre. It's 3 power. Uh, when Werewolf by Night is targeted by an attack, he can use superpower. If the attacker is within range 3, he can make a savage slash targeting the character. So it's a counterattack. So that's on like classic Sabretooth or Daredevil or Venom, something, someone like that. Although this is 3 power, those superpowers are typically 2 power. So this is a little bit more, but it is at range 3 and it's on a very good attack, right? So the opponent has to be careful because if they like push or throw him off of a point and then he counterattacks with Midnight Massacre, he could potentially leap back onto the point with that wild. So, and deal a ton of damage. So that's like nice to have, you know? I don't know if you're like counting on that being your main game plan, but seems pretty solid. And then he has healing factor 2 with 7 stamina is very good. Um Obviously I mentioned they took away the tactics card that makes it so it only takes 1 damage, but seems very good with the new version of that card that's called instant recovery that says any character with healing factor after they take the damage, they can play the card to then immediately heal their healing factor. So he could heal 2 during the other player's turn, which seems pretty good. So, what do I think of Werewolf by Night? Um, he's a 5 threat with really bad Mystic Defense, which is pretty scary, but he will like mess up the enemy like wizards or telepaths, because he has so much physical damage and like throws himself and stuff. Um, all of his stuff just costs so much power, and it's all just coming from his, very good strike. But it's like round 1, he's not really doing anything, right? It's like my 5 threat is just like double moving somewhere, and that's kind of it. Like I guess you could just activate Werewolf by Night first and like move him to the midline and be like, you could hit Werewolf by Night. He has 7 stamina. He could counterattack, but if he doesn't counterattack, he is set up for the next turn. So, they said he's in the Midnight Suns, which is really interesting because I think that range 1 place will help him quite a bit. And, we don't know what Elsa Bloodstone's leadership is, but it could potentially benefit him quite a bit because those are like the 2 main characters in the short, right? It's like Elsa and Werewolf by Night working together. But he's really good with Siege of Darkness because he has a 6 dice range 3 builder. He could use Bats the Ghost Hound to get the guaranteed leap. So I think he's gonna be really good in Midnight Suns. So yeah, pretty cool character. Like I mentioned earlier, I don't particularly care for these like monster characters, but I think it's cool they're in the game. All right, let's move on to Dracula. So he's like the centerpiece of the box, right? Like it's his like mansion of the terrain you can buy, and it's all themed around him. Like he probably like raised these guys from the dead or something. So, all right, Dracula, Vlad Dracula. He's a 4/3/4, 7 stamina, threat 5, size 3, medium move. So he's also on a medium base. So he's very similar to Werewolf by Night, 7 stamina, threat 5, size 3. Uh, Defenses are shifted around a little bit, but like so far, pretty similar to Werewolf. But there's so much on this card, it's ridiculous. I'll just mention now that they said he has a leadership that's on a tactics card that makes his allies his like vampiric thralls or thralls. So, not exactly sure what that means, but it's probably similar to like Hellfire Club, where it's like you have Dracula, then you like pick who he's like mind controlling or whatever, or who he's turned into vampires. So that'll be interesting to see. It'll probably synergize with all these monster characters. But let's have a look at his card. So he has an Ancestral Blade, range 2, strength 7, which is ridiculous. Gains power equal to damage dealt. And on a hit, he causes one of the following conditions: bleed, slow, root, or hex. Um, this is one of the most ridiculous builders I've seen. Like, this is just better than Malekith's now, and Malekith is a 7 threat. Like, Malekith's is 7 dice energy. Like, it's lost its pierce, and Dracula just, like, gives out a really good condition. Like, bleed is kind of whatever, but you'll see it synergizes with him because he's a vampire. Like, he wants people to be bleeding. And then slow, root, and hex are all just good. Like, you just pick the best one for who you're hitting, right? So, uh, crazy start to Dracula. Okay, then we have Blood Feast, which is a range 2, strength 6, cost 1 power, physical attack. He heals 1 damage for each damage dealt after the attack, and then after the attack is resolved, they gain bleed. So, I mean, this is also just super good. Like, he could potentially heal all. I guess he would have 6 stamina left. Like, that's not that crazy, right? Like, there's spikes in this game. So it's a little bit risky because it costs you power, and if you whiff and you were going for the heal, that kind of sucks. But it does give the guaranteed bleed, which is important later. So, like, really good attack. I guess maybe this isn't that great because it's literally fewer dice than its builder that's free. So you're only gonna do this for the heal. But like if you need to heal, it's great, right? Like there's not a lot of characters that heal off of damage dealt. It's like Venom and Dracula and there's 1 or 2 others, but solid to have. I don't know how often you're doing it. All right, then he has Fury of the Vampire, which is a mystic attack. Range 3, strength 8, 4 power. So it's a little bit different from the other spenders we've seen. Then it says that if the target is bleeding, he can reroll any number of his attack dice. Okay. And after the attack is resolved, if the target character is size 4 or less, throw them away medium. Woo! Okay. So he has some anti-big boy tech, which you know I like to see. Um, so this is kind of similar to Blade, which is cool because Blade is obviously a vampire as well. So it's Blade and Dracula are vampires in the game. You obviously want them bleeding first for the maximum effect, but just a guaranteed throw medium is really good. Like this is a great attack. It's kind of wild a mystic attack throws, so that's kind of interesting. But it's Dracula just like popping off, right? If I have one complaint, it has to be away. Obviously you prefer your throws and pushes to be any direction, but whatever, it's still a great attack. All right, so he has 3 awesome attacks, but it doesn't stop there. He has Hypnotic Stare, 2 power. Choose an enemy character within range 3 and advance them short. This can be used once per turn. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the best superpowers in the game, right? Like, it's on MODOK, Mr. Sinister, Ultron, a few other people, but it's just solid, right? It's like I can pull you in to hit you with my 7 dice builder, or I can move you away to get you off of a point and then kill your friend. Like he can swing a point by himself with this, right? So yeah, super flexible, really strong. Use it every single turn you activate Dracula. Next he has a 2-cost superpower called the Eternal Hunger. After an attack against this character is resolved, the attacker's within range 3, he can make an attack against that character. The superpower can be used only once per turn. Okay, so that's like Werewolf by Night, except it's one fewer power and it's any of his attacks. So he can do his Ancestral Blade, he can do Blood Feast to heal, he can do his Spender if he has enough power. Like, that's just really, really, really good. Like, that's like Venom, right? Like, Venom's thing is like, if you hit him, he can counterattack with his Spender and heal a whole lot. That costs Venom 5 power. For Dracula, it costs him 3 power. So, I mean, Dracula is a threat more, but that's a huge difference. 3 power, 5 power. And it's, well, I guess Venom's pretty flexible too. But if you don't need the heal, then he can just hit you with a 7 dice builder that'll give you Hex for your second attack. Like, yeah, really good superpower. Shapeshifting is a reactive superpower, costs 1 power. When he starts a move during his activation, he can use it. Then you choose one of the following effects before moving. So he's shapeshifting, obviously, and you pick what creature he's turning into. So a bat, he gains flight during this move. Okay. Wolf, his speed goes to long. Okay. Mist, he drops all objective tokens he has and then removes all conditions and 2 damage. I mean, I keep saying it, but like this is also just so good because it's flexible, right? It's like if you need to get over a building but need your medium move, turn into a bat. You're on the other side now. If you need to go super fast, turn into a wolf, get long move. Really good. Mist is probably the one you'll use the least, but when you need it, it's good, right? Like he drops all of his tokens, which obviously sucks because it makes sense because you're literally mist. You can't hold stuff. But you remove everything and heal 2 damage. So Dracula can heal when he wants to. It's just so flexible, and it's something you should always keep in mind, right? So it's worth noting it's only the one move. So like round one, he can't long move twice. Basically, he turns into a wolf, does the long move, and then turns back into Dracula, right? Then you have to spend another power to long move again. So I don't know how often you'll really do this, but when you need it, it's super clutch. All right, then he finally has an innate, the unholy vampiric immortality. So, at the end of Dracula's activation, he gains a power and removes a damage for each other character within range 3 that has bleed. So that's like Blade. I think Blade has the exact same thing. His might only be range 2. Double check that. But yeah, so that's the whole bleed thing, right? It's like he bleeds with his builder, he bleeds with Blood Feast. He gets a benefit on bleed for his spender. So this also opens up the whole bleed team that Blade kind of has. So like, Venom auto bleeds, Carnage auto bleeds. Blade is just like Blade and Dracula work really well together, which is kind of funny because they're like mortal enemies. But yeah, and then he has a leadership that we don't know a whole lot about right now, but I think Dracula is awesome. I mean, if he has a weakness, it's that you can just double hit him and hopefully deal all 7 damage. But then the problem with that is if you're at range 2, he's going to counterattack and blood feast and heal. So really, you have to hit him at like range 3 or further twice and get all 7 of his stamina down so he can't heal it. So yeah, I think that's how you counterplay this guy. But he seems good for a 5 threat. Like, he has control, he has throws, he has tons of damage, he's flexible, he heals, he's gonna be a leader. So yeah, I think Dracula is really good. Um, I think he's a lot better than Werewolf by Night, but we don't know what teams he's gonna be in besides his own. They just mentioned he's in some of the evil affiliations, so he might be in like Cabal. I don't really know where else he would fit, but we'll see. They said he's not in the Midnight Suns, so like if he's with Blade, he's gonna be a splash, right? So yeah, that's Dracula. Awesome character. Over here is Frankenstein's monster. We didn't get any of his rules, but he's probably gonna cause some bleeds for Dracula. All right, I think we have one more. Yep. So I saved the best for last. Uh, this is obviously Wrecking Crew and Abomination. So this is the one that leaked a while ago. I briefly mentioned it in one of my videos that these guys leaked. I didn't say who they were, just in case it was fake, but turns out to be true. Um, so in that leak, it said that these guys are both in the criminal syndicate, and that the Wrecking Crew are also in Cabal, and that Abomination is also in Hydra. Um, I don't really know the lore enough to like confirm that, but so far the leak has been accurate, so let's operate under the assumption that they're both at least in Criminal Syndicate. The other two, maybe not. I think Wrecking Crew is definitely in Criminal Syndicate at least. A-Bomb, not entirely sure, but it seems like he will be. There was this cool story about how AMG wanted like Hulk versus Abomination for like the first wave. So it was like the core set, Hulk, and MODOK, right? But like Marvel themselves pushed for MODOK instead of Abomination. So he got shelved for a while and has finally come out. Uh, they said his sculpt is designed to be like a kind of little like set piece with the Immortal Hulk that they're like fighting each other when you put them next to each other, which is pretty sweet. Um, so he's really cool. We don't know anything about him besides that, besides being potentially Criminal Syndicate and Hydra, but really cool character. It'd be sweet if Criminal's got a sixth threat, which, I mean, we don't know he's a sixth threat, but I'm just assuming that he's like close to Hulk, right? And then the Wrecking Crew, so it's four guys on a single base. It's a large base, like Rhino. You'll see I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons to Rhino because they actually do similar things to him, but these guys are just kind of hilarious. They're just four like dudes that are kind of like souped up by I think she's like a goddess. Her name is Carnilla. Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about them, but I believe they briefly showed up in this She-Hulk show, which is kind of cool. And they're also in Marvel Villainous under Titania, so if she ever comes out, they'll probably work fairly well together. But this pack is probably going to be fairly expensive because you get a giant abomination and four models on a single base. So I can see this set being kind of expensive, which is not super great because, you know, this is one that I'm probably going to get. So, oh well, the characters look awesome. And as we dive into the Wrecking Crew here, they're just hilarious. Um, so there's a lot going on here, but it's the Wrecking Crew. It's Brian and Dirk and Elliot and Henry all on a single base. Uh, so they're 4-3-4 defenses, 6 stamina, threat 4, size 2, short move. So the way I see it is they're each one threat, right? There's four of them, so they're four threat, and they're size 2 because like each of them are just a normal sized man, right? Like they're not stacked on top of each other, so they're still size 2. All right, but let's get into this wild card and how they're going to interact here. So we need to go top to bottom because the card kind of flows into itself, which is pretty cool. So the first attack is called Indestructible, which I assume is this wrecking ball this guy has. So it's a range 3, strength 5. You gain a power for making the attack, and on a hit, you cause a thunderous impact, and the target gains stun. So I mean that's solid attack. Range 3, 5 dice on a hit you stun, pretty good, and a guaranteed 1 power. Like I'm really liking that so far. And then the second attack is called Pile Driver. Range 2, 6 dice, also 0 power. You'll see the third attack is 0 power as well. So this guy doesn't, or these guys, I should say, don't have a spender. It's all free attacks, which is pretty cool. So what does this do? So once the attack is resolved, if damage was dealt and the character is size 3 or less, you can push them away short. Okay, sweet. So you're pushing them, and on a wild, you suplex. Once the attack is resolved, if they're stunned, they gain stagger. Okay, so we could have stunned from our first attack. So the combo so far is make this wrecking ball attack, stun them, and then pile drive them to stagger them and push them. All right, seems good so far. So I think the theme is like the first guy comes in and hits him, and the other guy comes from the side with the flying elbow, staggering him like you're just swarming him. Then we have the wrecking bar fling. So this is a mystic attack because I think this dude in the front just has like a magical crowbar, as far as I know. Like these guys are just silly, right? Like they're not meant to be serious, but I think it's great. So it's a beam for 4 dice, 0 power. So once the range tool is placed for the attack, you destroy all size 2 or smaller terrain features it overlaps. And then you add a die to each attack roll for the number of terrain features destroyed. So suddenly this beam could be like 7 dice if you do it right. Like that's not that unreasonable. It's more likely to be 5 or 6 because I think it's more important to hit enemy characters than terrain. But if you do it right, you could get some pretty nasty beams. And it's a beam 4, which is really far. And it's Mystic, which Mystic is typically a great type to have. So that's not it for this attack. After each attack is resolved, you gain a power. Okay. And after each attack is resolved, if damage was dealt and the target was staggered, you can throw them away short. So that's the final piece of the combo, right? It's like wrecking ball for stun, pile drive them to stagger, then hit them with the wrecking bar to throw them. Super thematic. Um, I mean, it's just a great attack. Beam 4, gain a power, potentially throw. Yeah, like that's a pretty devastating turn. But what you might be wondering is, how do you do this combo if it's 3 attacks? You only have 2 actions. So let's go down to let's take them down, boys. 3 power, and it says once you make an attack, after it's resolved, you can use the superpower. You can then make an attack you haven't used yet this turn. So it's like a different guy is attacking, right? So it's like the one guy wrecking balls, then the suplex, then the wrecking bar. So really cool. It wants you to do it in order, but you don't have to, right? It's like, you could do 2 beam 4s, mystic, gain a bunch of power, and then bulldoze, which we'll cover in a second, and do a pile driver. But let's talk about bulldoze. So this is the final member. I think it's this orange guy with the helmet. Uh, 3 power. Push this character medium. Does not stop its movement if it If it contacts a size 2 or smaller terrain feature, instead the terrain is destroyed, and he continues, and the character continues being pushed. Once you hit an enemy character, they suffer 1 damage and you stop. So it's kind of like Juggernaut's push, right? Except it's medium and it only goes through size 2. But that's like the final piece of the puzzle here, right? It's like you can do the wrecking ball at range 3 to get that 3rd power, and then you can bulldoze into the perfect position to do the wrecking bar fling, get a bunch of power, and then do let's take him down boys to like pile drive. So like there's a bunch of different combos you can do. And then finally, during the power phase, you gain 1 additional power. So, like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can go about this. The perfect combo is to stun, stagger, and then throw while doing 3 attacks, which is awesome. You might not have enough power for all that, but I think you're banking on this beam hitting decent amount of people and getting you some power. Uh, but I compare them to Rhino because of this bulldoze. You push them medium on a giant base, like that's really far. That's really, really far. Um, you obviously don't get the places off of the gore that Rhino has, but like you're not the same character, right? Right? Like you're gonna operate differently. Like you have a beam 4 mystic attack, which is really good. So I think these characters are hilarious. I can't wait to try them. I think they're gonna be really good in Criminal Syndicate because like under Kingpin, they could just kind of get wherever they want, right? Like they could push themselves through terrain, deal a ton of damage. You're like displacing people because you're either pushing them or throwing them, or staggering. And then with Shadowland Daredevil, you're potentially making like a ton of attacks, um, which is kind of crazy. But the lights just cut off on me for some reason. But yeah, like you could make like one, two, three. You could make like 5 attack rolls and get rerolls on all of them, right? To help you hit these triggers. So I think they're really good with Shadowland Daredevil. But yeah, super fun characters. Everything we've seen today is awesome. Keep an eye out for the video on Apocalypse and the tactics cards. But for now, that's going to be it for me. Check out that buy me a coffee thing if you want to help support the channel. And that's going to be it for me. Can't wait for Wrecking Crew and Abomination. So thanks for watching, guys. Go like and comment and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. See ya.